Welcome back to On the Same Page. We are on Daf Yud Zayin Amud Beis, 17b of Maseches Kiddushin. We're on the second line of the page. The Gemara begins, Tanu Rabbanan, the rabbis taught. So last time we were learning about Ha'anaka, about the severance gift that the slave owner gives to his Eved Ivri, or his Amal Ivriya, his manservant or his maidservant upon release. And we saw different opinions as to how much it is. So now the Gemara says, it quotes a brisa, Tanu Rabbanan, the rabbis taught, Asher birachacha Hashem Elokecha. The pasuk says, it says, Hanek taniklo, you shall surely give him a severance gift, mitoncho migarnecha miyikvecha, from your sheep, from your threshing floor, and from your wine vat. And then it says, Asher birachacha Hashem Elokecha titenlo, that which Hashem has blessed you, you should give to him. Now, the Gemara understands that, this brisa seems to understand that there's a connection between the blessing that you receive and the work that he did. And therefore it says, Yochel, I might think, Nisbarich bayis biglolo manikim lo. I might think that only if there was blessing to the house during his term as a Eved Ivri, as a Jewish slave, then you should give him a severance gift. But lo nisbarich bayis biglolo. But if it wasn't asher beirachacha, if there wasn't blessing in the house when he was there, or as a result of him, manikim lo, then you don't give him a severance gift. That's what you might have thought to say. Talmud Lomar, that's why the pasuk says, Hanek ta'anik. It uses this double language, which is, like you shall surely give him a gift. So that teaches us mikol makom, in any event, whether there was bracha in the house, whether there wasn't, Hanek ta'aniko, you should give him the gift. Im kain, so if so, ma talmud lomar asher beirachacha. So then, why does it say that with that which Hashem has blessed you? So that's to teach you hakol lefi bracha tenglo. The amount that you give him should be based on the bracha, upon the blessing that came upon the house. Rashi explains, we saw three opinions last week about how much you have to give. One opinion was about 15, one was 30, one was 50. So according to, or 50 worth of commodities, 15 worth, 30 worth, 50 worth. So this would be telling you that that's the minimum amount, whatever you hold. But hakol lefi bracha, but based on how much blessing, if you brought a lot of blessing to the house, then it may be appropriate to give more. But Rabbi Elazar ben Azariah disagrees. He says, Dvarim kichsavan. No, it's as it says, as it's written. Nisbarech bayis biglolo manikim lo. If there was blessing to the house, then you give him hanaka, then you give him a severance gift. But lo nisbarech bayis biglolo, but if the house was not blessed as a result of him, ein manikim lo, you do not give him hanaka, you don't give him a severance gift. So Rabbi Elazar ben Azariah actually holds it's dependent on whether the slave brought bracha, brought blessing to the house. Im kain matam adlomar hanek tanik. So then why the double language of hanek tanik, which we said comes to teach you, you shall surely give him in any event? So he responds, Dibra Torah kolashon b'nei adam, that the Torah speaks the way that people speak. In other words, this is a common idea in the Gemara, that some understand when it uses a double language that you can learn something from that, and others say no. Others say, Dibra Torah kolashon b'nei adam. Double language is not to teach you anything addition. The Torah speaks the way that we speak. And hanek tanik means you shall surely do it, but it doesn't come to teach you anything additionally. That's just how the Torah expresses itself. So that's a machlokas, whether you still give a severance gift. It's a dispute whether you give a severance gift if the Jewish slave did not bring any blessing to the house. Now the Gemara goes on, it brings another brisa, Tanu Rabbanan, the rabbis taught. Eved Ivri, a Jewish slave, Oved Esaben. He serves the son, meaning if the father dies in the first 6 years, then the Eved Ivri now has to serve the son. Ve'eno Oved Esabas, but he would not serve a daughter if the daughter was the inheritor, if there were no sons and a daughter was inheriting. The Eved Ivri does not serve the daughter. Likewise, if there were no children and it was a brother inheriting, he wouldn't serve the brother. Specifically, a son that he would stay on to serve, but otherwise he would go free upon the master's death. Ama Ivriya, now a maidservant, a female, Eina ovedis lo es haben velo es habas. She serves neither. If her master dies, then she goes free and she doesn't go on to the son or the daughter. Hanirtza, what about a male slave who stayed past 6 years and had his ear pierced? Ve'animkar ovid kochavim, or a slave who was an eved ivri to a non-Jew. He was sold to a non-Jew. So the master died. So either in the case where he stayed on longer with his ear pierced, or where the master was not Jewish and the master died, Eino oved lo es haben velo es habas. There too, he goes free. He doesn't serve the son, doesn't serve the daughter, and the Jewish slave goes free. So now the Gemara will explore these different halachos, find sources for them, etc. So it says Amar Mar, the master taught. We learned just now in this brisa. Eved ivri ovedas haben ve'eno ovedas habas. That a Jewish slave, he will serve the son if the master dies, if the father dies, but he will not serve the daughter. Minahani mili. Where do we know this from? Ditana Rabbanan, the rabbis taught, va'avadcha sheishonim. It says that he shall serve you for 6 years, which excludes something. You and not something. So what do we exclude? L'cha v'lo liyarish. That he will serve you, but he won't serve an heir, an inheritor. Basically, the Jewish slave is not inherited. Now that would sound like he wouldn't serve neither a son or a daughter or a brother if the master died. Says the Gemara, Ata omer lecha v'lo liyarish. Now you're saying it means that the slave serves you and not an heir. Oh, eino elo lecha v'lo leben. Maybe it's more expansive, meaning maybe when we say, I guess, v'lo liyarish, but and not to the inheritor, maybe we mean even and not to the son. Maybe when the master dies, the eved ivri does not even go to the son. However, that's what I might have thought to say. Right? It says va'avadcha, he'll serve you. And not anybody else, not even the son. But kishehu omer, but when it says in another pasuk, it says sheishanim ya'avod. He shall serve for 6 years. Harei leben amor. There you have it stated that he'll serve even the son. Meaning, we have a contradiction, basically, of two verses. One says he has to serve 6 years. It sounds like he's got to fill out his term. It doesn't matter if the father dies. On the other hand, we have that it says he shall serve you for 6 years. You and not someone else. So one of the verses seems to say he always serves 6 years. One of them seems to say that we need to exclude someone, or everyone even. So how do we reconcile this? So it must be that there's somebody who's excluded and there's somebody who's not. So at this point, so it says Hamani Mekayim Va'avadcha sheishanim. So then how do I understand when it says, and he shall serve you for 6 years, and it sounds like you and not someone else? L'cha v'lo liyarish, you and not an heir. But if it was a son, then he would stay on to serve, because it says he's got to serve his term. What's that coming to include? That even for the son. Now, ask the Gemara, now what do you see that it should be the son who is included, and to exclude the brother? Meaning, here we're putting Bas, the daughter, and a brother in the same category, because again, a normal Yerusha, a normal inheritance would be that if the master dies, his possessions go to his son. If there's no son, then it goes to his daughter. If there's no daughter, it goes to his brother. So we're looking at the daughter and his brother as yarshim, as heirs, as inheritors, but we're saying that when the master dies, the eved is not part of the normal inheritance. The eved does not go to the daughter or a brother, but it will go to the son, and that's because we have one pasuk that sounds like somebody does inherit, and one pasuk that sounds like nobody does. So how do we get around it? Who does? The son inherits. Who doesn't? The daughter and the brother. asks the Gemara, why are you choosing the son over the master's brother? Maybe it's in the situation where he has a son that it doesn't get inherited, but maybe it could go to the brother. So the Gemara says as follows. The Gemara says, Marbe ani es haben, sheken kam tachas aviv liyada uistei achuza. Now I might have said that the reason why we assume it goes to the son before the brother is because the son is earlier in inheritance than the master's brother. But for some reason the Gemara doesn't say that. Rather, the Gemara says that I include the son. I assume that the son is included, and the son does inherit the Eved Ivri. Sheken kam tachas aviv, because we find that the son replaces the brother, the father, in certain situations. Well, actually, the reason probably why we have this question, despite what I just asked, why the son comes first for inheritance, is because this isn't a normal inheritance. This is only a temporary possession. So we look at this like a different type of inheritance. It doesn't follow the normal rules. So that's why we have this question. Maybe the brother should come before the son. Who says the son comes before the brother when the master dies? And who says that a son inherits but a brother doesn't inherit the Eved Ivri for him to finish up his 6-year term? So he explains the reason why I would think that the son does inherit him, that he does have to serve out his term under the son, is because the son actually replaces the father in certain situations. Number one, liyada, that this is now with regards to a maidservant, this idea, but when a man acquires a maidservant, he's supposed to marry her, or his son can marry her. So the son can take that spot. And another area where the son can take the father's spot is listei achuza, for a field that is inherited. Now Rashi explains to us what this is talking about, that if a person is makdish, sanctifies, dedicates a field to the Beis HaMikdash, to the temple, so you don't actually give the field to the temple. They don't have use for it. But you're dedicating the monetary value. So you now have to redeem the field, and you redeem it at a certain price. Now let's say you don't redeem it. You dedicate it, but you don't redeem it. So you're supposed to be the one to redeem it. But let's say you can't or you don't. So then the gizbar, the treasurer of the Beis HaMikdash, of the temple, he'll now be in charge of turning this field into cash and selling it to someone else. So the halacha is that if you don't redeem the field, and the gizbar, the treasurer, sells it to someone else, you can no longer redeem it back, even though it was from your inheritance. And we know normally when somebody sells a field that Yovel comes back to you, but this is going to be different. If you sanctify, if you dedicated it and then it got sold, you lost it. It's no longer going to come back to you. And now it doesn't stay by the buyer at Yovel. What happens at Yovel when the Jubilee year comes? So it actually goes back to the Kohanim, and the Kohanim divide it up. That is the halacha. That's true if somebody else bought the field from the treasurer. But if your son buys the field from the treasurer, then he takes your place. It stays in the family, and then at Yovel it remains with the family. It doesn't go to the Kohanim at Yovel. So there again, the son is taking the place of the father. So the Gemara is saying it makes sense that if we have two choices, either the son or the brother, in which situation will only one of them will we say ever replaces the father in assuming the rights to the slave for the remainder of his term of the 6 years, it should be the son or the brother. So we're saying it should be the son, because the son takes the place of the father. Number one, he takes the place that he can marry the maidservant. And number two, we see that he takes the place of the father in terms of redeeming this field and protecting it from being lost to the family when Yovel comes. So the Gemara says, very nice, but on the contrary, Marban Yesa'ach, maybe I should come to include the brother. Shekin kam tachas achiv liyibum. Because he also replaces the master in a certain situation. He replaces his brother for Yibum. If the brother dies without children, then there's Yibum. His brother will marry his wife or do chalitza. But Yibum is the natural course, and that's replacing his brother. So we see that the brother also takes the place of the brother. So he also takes the place. So maybe the brother should take the place and not the son in terms of inheriting of having the slave continue his term under him. So the Gemara says that doesn't make sense because kulam yesh yibum el b'makom she'ein ben. Because it says the Gemara, is there even such thing as yibum when there's a son? There's only yibum when there's no son. Hayesh ben ein yibum. But if there's a son, then there's no yibum. So it's true there's a situation where the brother takes the place of his brother, but that's only when there isn't a son. So that, I guess, indicates that the one situation where we have that the brother takes the place of the brother, it's only where there's no son. So you don't really see that he should ever come before the son. So over here, when we're talking about who should be the one that inherits the slave, again, we don't mean where they're both there. We really mean, I suppose it could be when they're both. Actually, it could be when they're both alive. When there's both a son and a brother, who should inherit the slave when the master dies? Somebody does, and somebody doesn't. That's clear from the psukim. This contradiction that we have. So it doesn't make sense to say, oh, the brother replaced the brother, because he only replaces him when there's no son. So that's why it makes sense that it goes to the son. So the Gemara says, okay, fine. So we're happy with that, but we have a question. Ela taima dika hapircha. It sounds like the reason why we're satisfied now is because of this question, this point that we just made, that it doesn't make sense for the brother to replace his brother when there's a son, because even by Yibum, there's only Yibum when there's no son. Halav hachi, but if not for that, it sounds like ach adif. It sounds like if not for that pircha, that question, we would prefer the brother. Why? B'tepagli da hachatarti v'achachada. Why don't we say here there's two and here there's only one? In other words, when we made the point that the son replaces the father, we had two instances. One was liyada, that he can marry the maidservant, and one was when he redeems the field, he replaces the father. So we have two scenarios where the son replaces the father. We have yibum, which is one scenario where the brother replaces the father, the brother. So why do we need this pircha, this question, to reject that proof from yibum? Just say it's 2-1, so the son is more of a replacement for the father. So the Gemara says, no, it's not really 2-1, because because the idea that the son redeems the field for his father, we also only know because of this pircha, because of this question. Because there too, it doesn't say who it is that if he redeems the field, he'll assume the place of the father, and the family will keep it and won't go to the Kohanim at Yovel. It doesn't say who. There's a drasha we can learn out from the pasuk that there's someone, but it's not clear who. So we have that same question: is it the son or is it a brother? Who is it that when he buys the field from the treasury of the Beis Hamikdash, of the temple, that it remains in the family and doesn't go to the Kohanim at Yovel? Is it the brother or the son? So we say, well, who takes the place of the father? On the one hand, the brother does yibum and replaces the father. On the other hand, the son replaces the father when he marries a maidservant. So who should replace him in terms of who can take his place in terms of redeeming the field? So there also we come on to this very same pircha, the same question. Well, yibum isn't a good proof, because yibum only happens when there's no son. So really it's the son who takes the place of the father. So there too it relied on this question. So it was never really 2-to-1. It's really 1-to-1. It's really Yud, the fact that the son can marry the maidservant, and not this other point, and not Yibum, because Yibum has this pircha. Yibum has this question on it. That's really all there is, and the steachuza, the field that's inherited, is also relies on the knowledge or the question that Yibum isn't a good proof, because Yibum only happens when there's no son. So the way the Gemara says it is steachuza nami mehai pirchahu. Steachuza, the fact that it's the son who replaces the father by redeeming the field of inheritance. That's also because of the question that we asked on Yibum, Dika nafkale, that we learn out, Litana, that the Tana learns it out. That Kulum Yeshibum, Al Shein Ben, this question that isn't there only Yibum when there's no son? So that also relied on this question, but and doesn't stand on its own. So that's why at the end of the day, the only reason why we say the son is the one who takes the place of the father, both by the field of inheritance and over here, in terms of who it is that if the master dies, the slave will finish his 6 years by, it's only because we have this question on Yibum that we say it's the son. Okay. The Gemara now continues and examines the next part of the brisa. The next part of the brisa said, Alma ha'ivriya eina ovedis lo asaben v'lo asabas. A maidservant serves neither the son or the daughter. If the master dies, the maidservant goes free, and she doesn't get inherited to the son or daughter. Minahani mili, ask the Gemara, from where do I know this? Amar Rabbi Pada. Rabbi Pada said, Amar Kra, because the pasuk says, Ve'af la'amascha ta'asekain. The pasuk says that you shall do the same to your maidservant. So this pasuk actually seems to be talking about piercing the ear, but that's not how the Gemara understands it. The pasuk says that you should take the awl and place it in his ear and in the door, and then he'll be your slave forever. And you should do that also to the maidservant. So it really sounds like it's saying that there's a concept of piercing the ear of a maidservant and having her stay on. But leaving that aside for a second, the Gemara says, what are we going to learn from here? You should do the same to your maidservant. The Torah juxtaposed it, compared it to the nirtza, to the one getting his ear pierced, because it's in the same verse. And that teaches me that man nirtza eino oved lo asaben v'lo asabas, just like one who gets their ear pierced is not inherited to neither the son or the daughter. Meaning, once if he stays on for longer than 6 years, he gets his ear pierced, and then the master dies, he goes free. He doesn't go with the son or the daughter. That we'll learn out soon. So too, so to a maidservant, if the master dies, whether it's within the first 6 years, or I guess within the first 6 years, she never stays on past 6 years. If it's even within the first 6 years, she goes free. She doesn't serve neither the son or the daughter. Asks the Gemara, are these words that you shall do the same to the maidservant coming to teach me this? To compare it to the nirtza, the one who got his ear pierced, that we can learn this out, that she to compare them, and that she doesn't get inherited neither to the son or the daughter? Is that available for teaching me that? We need this pasuk, this verse, for something else. Likidatanya, like we learn in a brisa. The brisa says, that you should do the same to your maidservant. That's what it says in the verse. What does that teach me? Lahanik. It teaches me that you give hanaka, that you give a severance gift. Says the Gemara, Ata Omer Lahanik. This is really the brisa. You are saying that it means that you give her a severance gift? Oh, maybe it means l'ritzia, that you pierce her ear, which is the simple reading of the pasuk, and that she could stay on. Kisho Omer, however, says the Brisa, when the pasuk says elsewhere, V'mamor yomar ha'eved, if the eved, the male servant, will say, I love my master, I want to stay on, then you pierce his ear. And we learn out that it's true for an eved, a male servant, v'lo amal ivriya, and not an amal ivriya, not a maidservant. There's no concept of piercing her ear by a maidservant. So it's already been stated with regards to Ritzia, to piercing her ear for her to stay on longer, that we don't do that. So how do I read this verse that says you shall do the same to your maidservant? It must be going on what the verses previously spoke about, which is lehanik, which is giving a severance gift. So it's really going back on what the Torah was speaking about before, not on what's immediately in this verse, that you pierce her ear. No, you don't pierce a maidservant's ear. She always goes free after her 6 years, and rather, unless she married him, but rather what it's teaching you is that you give her hanaka, you give her a severance gift when she does go free. So, says the Gemara, this is a question. We seem to need this verse already to teach me that she gets a severance gift. How can I use it to teach me also that she doesn't get inherited to the son or the daughter? Says the Gemara, Im Kain, if it was only teaching me one thing, Nichtov kra la'amascha kain. Just say, also to your maidservant, it is so. My ta'aseh, why does it say, also to your maidservant, do this? Shmas mina tarti, that's to teach me two things. It's coming to teach me two things. Af la'amascha kain on its own, also to your maidservant, this would teach me that she doesn't get inherited. But Tasaking, you shall do this, is also teaching me that she gets a severance gift. Okay, says the Gemara, the next part of the Brisa said, Hanirtza v'animkar l'ovid kochavim, eino ovid lo esaben v'lo esabas. One who had his ear pierced, or one who was sold to a Gentile, never is inherited, does not serve the son, does not serve the daughter, if the master dies. Hanirtza, one who had his ear pierced and stayed on past 6 years, how do I know that when the master dies he goes free? Tichsiv, because the pasuk says, V'ratza Adonai besazno b'amartzeya, and his master should pierce his ear with an awl, a peg, v'avado le'olam, and he should serve him forever. Him, v'lo esaben v'esabas, him but not the son or daughter. That's how I know that he only would serve the father forever, but if the father dies, the master dies, he would go free once it passed the 6 years. Nimkar lobit kochavim minayin. How do I know that if a Jewish slave is sold to a Gentile and he dies, the Gentile dies, that he's not inherited by the Gentile's children, but rather he goes free? Amar Chizkiah says, Amar Kra, because the pasuk says, when it talks about redeeming him from the Gentile, it says, V'chishavim koneu, and you should calculate with the one who acquired him, V'loim yarshe koneu, but not with the inheritors of the one who acquired him. Meaning, you would never have a situation where you have to negotiate a redemption with the inheritors because they don't inherit him. So v'chishavim koneu, im koneu, you should calculate with his purchaser how much to redeem him for, but not with the inheritors of his purchaser. So that the children of the non-Jew will not inherit the slave if the non-Jew dies, if the master dies. Okay, now this leads us into a new discussion, which is an interesting discussion about the inheritance of non-Jews and also of converts. So the Gemara says, Amar Rava says, Divar Torah, according to the Torah, Ovid Kochalim Yorish es Aviv. A Gentile inherits their father. We know there's inheritance with Jews, the Torah speaks about it explicitly, but how do we know that from a Torah standpoint, under Torah law, a non-Jew inherits his father? So it says, so Rava says he does. Shenemar, as the pasuk says, V'chishavim koneu, that you should calculate with the one who purchased him. This verse that we just talked about, that when you redeem a slave from a non-Jew, you have to calculate with the purchaser. how much you owe him. But we learn out, but not with the inheritors. That you don't have to negotiate with the inheritors, that in other words, a slave is not inherited. But we can deduce to Isla Yarshim that he has inheritors. His possessions are normally inherited. A slave is not inherited. A Jewish slave has specific laws. But in general, there is Yerusha, there is inheritance by non-Jews. That's Rava's proof. Now what about a convert? So a convert, we have an idea that when somebody converts to Judaism, it's like they were just born. Gerushin is gayer kekatan shenoladami. It's like they were just born, and in halacha they no longer have a halachic connection to the family members that from before they converted. So the Gemara says, Ger esa obed kochavim eno midivrei Torah. That which a Gentile inherits from, that which a convert inherits from his Gentile father, he does, but it's not midoraisa. It's not based on Torah law, elo midivrei sofrim. It's based on rabbinic law. How do I know? It's not because we have a Mishnah. The Mishnah says, Ger v'obed kochavim sheyarshu es aviyim. A convert and a Gentile who inherited their father. So you have a guy converts, and his brother doesn't. So they're brothers, but one is a convert and one is not. And then their father dies. So it says that if they inherit their father, Obed Kochavim, they inherit their father who's also not Jewish. Ger Yachol Lomar Obed Kochavim, the Jewish brother is allowed to tell his non-Jewish brother, Tol Ata Avodas Kochavim, you should take any idolatry in the inheritance, Vani Ma'os, and I'm going to take the money. Tol Ata Yain Nesach, you should take the wine that was used for libations, Vani Peiros, and I'll take the fruit. He has a right to say, the Mishnah says, that the Jewish brother has a right to say, I'm not inheriting the idolatrous things, you have to take that, and I'll take other things, I'll take money, I'll take fruit. But anything that's part of idolatry, I don't want. I converted to Judaism. And he has a right to say that. But, Mishabo l'rshus ger, but once it's already come into his possession, usr, it's forbidden for him to trade them in. Why? Because then he'll be benefiting from things that are used for idolatry, and that's usr, that's forbidden. One is not allowed to be net, one can't benefit from anything that was used for idolatry. So once it comes into his possession, then he can't trade it. And if it's true that inheritance is de'oraisa, that the ger, that the convert, inherits his father, his Gentile father on a Torah level, even if it didn't enter his property yet, he still shouldn't be able to say, I take this, you take that. Kishakil, because when he takes money instead of the idols, he's trading in the idols. Because if he inherits midoraisa according to Torah law, then as soon as the father dies, they now have shared possessions of all the father's inheritance. And for him to say, I don't want this, rather I want this, that means he's trading in something, because it's his. He has part ownership of it. And he'd be benefiting from the idolatry. From the fact that he's allowed to stipulate before he gets anything, before anything comes into his house, and say, I want this but not that. I don't want the idolatry, I want that. He's allowed to sort of trade it. That's because it's not yet his. Because midoraisa, according to the Torah, he didn't inherit. The rabbis gave him the right to inherit, but it's delayed. He has the chance to say before it comes into his possession, I want the money, I want the couch, I don't want the idols. El midrabanan, it's only midrabanan. And what gives him this right to say this? Why? I think what it's saying is, why did the Rabbanan say that a convert is allowed to inherit? Why did they insist that he should be able to inherit his father, even though the halachic connection has been cut off, and they're really not related anymore? So why does he inherit his father? So it's a gezerah hu David Rabbanan shema yachzer l'suro. they were concerned that over money he might denounce his Judaism and go back to his old ways, and that would not be desired, and therefore they said, so that there's no temptation to leave his Judaism over the money. They said that he can inherit his father as well. Tanya Namihachi, we have another brisa that shows that midoraisa, that he only inherits midirabanan. It's only rabbinic, his inheritance, but not doraisa, the convert from his non-Jewish father. Because the brisa says, Bamedvar Mamurim, when is he allowed to stipulate and say, you take the idols, not me? Kishayarshu, that's only by Yerusha, by inheritance. Because it's not yet his midoraisa, according to the Torah, it's not yet his. Abal kishinishtatfu aser. But if they were partners, it would be forbidden. Meaning, if there's two partners in I don't know, the two brothers are partners. One is Jewish, one's not, and they own all sorts of things, and they want to dissolve the partnership. So, and there are forbidding items. There's idolatrous items there. So, I guess let's say it happened. I assume it happened before he converted. They had a partnership. They own certain things. Now one of them converts, and now there's idolatrous items there, but they belong to him. When we say that he's like he's reborn, it doesn't mean he loses all his possessions. That we don't say. So they belong to him. So, for him now to divide up the partnership and say, okay, you take the idols and I get the cash or the furniture, that's taking advantage of idolatry. That's gaining from it. So he can't do that. That's because he has possession on a doraisa level. He owns it. It's specifically by inheritance we see the fact that it says in this brisa that by inheritance he's allowed to do that because midoraisa, according to Torah, he hasn't yet taken possession because according to the Torah he doesn't inherit. It's only the rabbis that say he can inherit. But before he inherits, he's allowed to divide things up. Okay, the Gemara continues and it says, Ovid kochavim es hager, a Gentile from a convert. Let's say a father converts and he has children who are not Jewish. So do those non-Jewish children inherit their Jewish father? The answer is no. V'ger es hager, and one convert to another convert. Let's say a father and son both convert. So they're both like the reborn. They're not actually related in halacha. So it says Eino lo midivrei Torah v'lo midivrei sofrim. There's no inheritance for either of those cases, not from the Torah and not midrabanan. If a father converts and not the son's not Jewish, he does not inherit his father. Even if they both convert, he doesn't inherit because they're not related. And I guess here we have no concern, there's no temptation to go back to being not Jewish because you can't really do that. But we have no no concern that he's going to denounce his Judaism because it won't help him because the father is Jewish. So either way, he's whether the son is Jewish or not, he's not going to inherit the father. If they converted separately. However, the Gemara goes on and it says D'Tanan, because we're learning on Mishnah, Lava Mos Mingager, Sheniskairu Banavimo, if you borrow money from a convert whose children also converted, Lo Yachzir Lebanav, and the father dies, you don't pay back the children because they don't inherit their father. So you don't owe anybody. Vim Hichzir, and if you did pay them back, the sages would not be pleased with that. There's no requirement, and there's no, you don't owe him, so there's no obligation to pay back the son. V'atanya, but we have a brisa that says the opposite. It says that the sages are happy if you pay back the son. Again, we're talking about that you owe the father money. He's a convert. His children also converted. The father dies. Do you pay the children? So it says you don't, because they don't inherit their father. And if you do, the rabbis are not happy, because there's no reason to. On the other hand, the Brisa says that Ruach Chacham Menochim, the rabbis are happy if you do. So how do you resolve that contradiction? The Gemara says, Lo Kashya, it's not a contradiction. Kansha Rasa V'leidaso Shelo B'Kedusha. The first case where we are father and son who converted, that's where both the conception and the birth were Shelo B'Kedusha, were before he became Jewish. So the mother wasn't Jewish, and at the time of birth, and so the son was born not Jewish and then converted later. That's where we say there's no connection at all. There's no need to pay the son if you owe the father and the father dies. The Khan, top of the next page, here where we say that the Chachamim said, if you pay him, we're happy with that. Sheharaso shelo b'kedusha v'leidaso b'kedusha. That's where the conception happened when not in Kedusha, before the conversion. But leidaso b'kedusha, but he was born b'kedusha. When he was born, there was already a conversion. So the mother had already converted. So the child is Jewish, I think, considered a convert along with the mother in the mother's womb. The child, though, is born Jewish, a Jewish convert, but there's still halachically no connection to the father, because at the time of conception, the mother wasn't Jewish and the child wasn't Jewish. So, and the father, I assume, right? I don't know if it makes a difference if the father was or not, or if the mother wasn't. So there's no connection to the father, halachically, and therefore you don't have to pay him back. You don't have to pay the son if the father dies. But there we say, but if you do, Ruach Chacham Menochem, and the rabbis are happy if you do. Why are they happy? Because at the end of the day, he was born Jewish, and or when he was born, he was Jewish, and therefore he looks like he's not a convert. He looks like he should be related to his family and to his father, and therefore, since it looks that way, if you don't pay him, people might think that you don't have to pay back an inheritor. They might think when in a normal situation where both the father and the child are Jewish together and not having converted, that they're also, you don't have to, if the father dies, you don't have to pay the child. That's what someone might think. So therefore, if you pay, you don't have to pay back the son, but if you do, Ruach Chacham Nochaim, and then the Chachamim are pleased, because anyways it looks like a normal situation, since at the end of the day this child was born as a Jew, since the mother had converted while pregnant with the child. We'll stop there. We'll continue next time.